I recently made an HBAR video where I did include this announcement in it. And basically what this is a Hedera ETP. Now, this is from 21 Shares. They announced the launch of the 21 Shares Hedera ETP, HDRA. This is definitely a huge deal. Now, under that video, there was a few comments, and I think that it mainly comes down to confusion around how these ETPs actually work. Basically, the comment was, this is not going to have any impact on HBAR. A few individuals actually had some great interviews with individuals from 21 Shares where we got confirmation that this will impact HBAR in a big way, which is very exciting to see. Now, let's actually talk about this and let's actually dive on into that. First and foremost, let's actually start off with this post here. And this is from Coinman, the HBAR Barbarian. Now, this is regarding the HBAR Bulls recent video where he did have 21 shares on it. We have what we were hearing from clients was demand for HBAR. And this is actually from Duncan, the president of 21 Shares. They actually announced their Hedera ETP, which we already know about. Check this out. This is the reason why they launched the ETP. And then I will address what I mean by how this impacts HBAR. So listen close to this one.
What we were hearing from clients was demand for HBAR. That's why we have a product in the market. So we know that now this is from institutions, from institutional investors, that there has been demand for the asset, and those institutional investors do like the themes around tokenization, around payments, digital identity, anything like that. In particular, tokenization. Let's face it, because it's probably closer to the institutional asset managers' kind of hearts. I think Hedera is actually really well placed in that regard.
So yeah, one thing is very clear is that there is a lot of demand for HBAR. We've actually been hearing about this throughout the year, right? From some very prominent names, especially ones that have applied for Hedera ETFs in the US. Basically, they have been addressing that there's a lot of demand for HBAR. Their clients are asking about HBAR. They want access to HBAR. And that's why we're now starting to see a lot of these ETPs and ETFs becoming a reality around a lot of these digital assets. And did you notice that a lot of these digital assets have something in common? Most of them are utility based. They're actually focused on tokenization. They're focused on DeFi, for example, enterprise grade use cases. Hedera is the same exact thing, which we are hearing, in this interview with Duncan from 21 Shares. He's saying that, the main focus here was around tokenization. They are focused on these key themes around, tokenization, digital identity, payments, you name it. Now, on top of that, let's actually talk about why this is really going to impact, HBAR itself. Here we actually have over here from All In Crypto. Again, another great interview with Duncan, and this is how 21 Shares HBAR ETP HDRA works, with the HDRA stock being made up 100% of HBAR tokens. 21 Shares must buy HBAR from the crypto market to meet and match investments into HDRA. Check it out.
How, for example, the HDRA, which is the ticker for it, if anybody's curious, it's currently trading at just over $20.
Yeah.
Now, some people are going, well, that's not the price of Hedera. Could you maybe explain how that works? People might be a little bit confused about all of that.
Yeah. So it's the same. So we apply the same principle for ETPs as you do on funds or stocks or even crypto. There's some denomination for buying a unit. So if you buy in the case of an ETP, you're buying a note. In the case of a fund, you're buying a unit, or a stock, you're buying a share. And you need to set the denomination. So we started the Hedera ETP at $20. That means that the lowest amount somebody can invest is $20. If they give us $20, we go and buy $20 worth of HBAR, and then we put it into custody. So it's not the price of HBAR. It's not sort of any spread. It's just we buy that. That's the minimum amount somebody can invest, and we try to keep them as low as possible, right, to make it as accessible to as many people.
And what you're doing with this is essentially not just, and it's very considerate that you're doing that. $20 is at the moment a low barrier to entry, I would say, relative to a lot of what's out there. But what you're doing is not just allowing people to access it that perhaps don't have as much capital as some institutions or large investors, you're also opening the door up to institutional investors.
So yeah, when we think about what's going on here, this is very exciting for HBAR and for HBAR holders because, once we start to see volume into this ETP, it's definitely going to impact HBAR, which we love to see. That's great. It's going to include more volume and value, flowing into HBAR. So love to see it. Obviously, the demand is not going to be very significant, but again, it is something that's going to help HBAR. So love to see it. Big shout out to All in Crypto for this, and also, of course, the HBAR bull. Now, outside of that, let's actually talk about a few things happening around HBAR as well. Number one, we have a big update from FSCO. We have our founder, CEO, and also Bretton Woods.com member talking BIS or crypto asset guidelines, our bank consortium work in the Philippines, and the importance of local stablecoins to manage sovereign currency risk. Now, what's funny about this is they did tag Hedera and a few big banks. Now, why would they tag a few big banks here, right? And also, they're talking about stablecoins here because at the Bretton Woods committee, we have here that they joined a panel discussing the role of public-private partnerships in the acceleration of digital currencies. Well, it's because we know that back in January, Philippine banks collaborated to launch PHPX stablecoin on Hedera. Now, we have yet to actually see any news from this, but those big banks that were at this event were also involved with this stablecoin. I do think that we're closing in on having a new update from this because of these overall meetings and these discussions that are happening at some very significant conferences. This is a huge one, and it's from the Bretton Woods Committee. So love to see it. Hedera is starting to make some noise that might be going unnoticed because, again, this only has 6,000 views, very little engagement. But we already know that this is still an active engagement around Hedera, and I do think that this is going to be a big one, considering the fact that stablecoins continue to become a huge talking subject around every aspect. We're talking about not just retail, governments, institutional players, enterprise companies themselves. So again, this is definitely a common theme. Stablecoins are huge, and of course, Hedera is not missing it. Now, also, let's go over here to CoinGecko because they put out an article which was top 5 altcoins FBS thinks are set to explode in 2025. Now, this is actually a broker. This is FBS Broker. They are not a huge, massive name, but they're still a broker. And they're talking about 5 altcoins that they are thinking will explode in 2025. And HBAR is the top pick out of all of them. Here we actually have HBAR number 1. The reason why is because it is a strong contender for the DLT crown, abandoning the traditional blockchain architecture in favor of its own Hashgraph consensus protocol, as opposed to power-devouring proof of work or probabilistic proof of stake systems. Hedera's gossip about gossip method provides deterministic completeness, extremely high performance, and ultra low power consumption. So again, they're focused on this. They're focused on the tokenization aspect of HBAR, the digital payment side, the decentralized finance side as well, the GC, and then they're also looking at the overall price action here, which is in a flag formation. And we're just waiting for something to happen, obviously, around the altcoin market. But when we really think about what's happening here, we're starting to see Hedera take a different sort of seat at the table. Okay, for the longest time, Hedera didn't have a seat at the table. Now, almost everyone is talking about Hedera, and it is because of a lot of these big moves happening. For an example, right, they're talking about the board of governors, but on top of that, they're also talking about, the asset studio, the tokenization asset studio, right? They're also talking about bonds, stocks, and stablecoins. Then they're talking about the Philippine, move with the peso-backed stablecoin on Hedera that is being worked on. They're also talking about the ETP for HBAR as well. Then we also see a lot of the quantum resistant, side of Hedera being focused on as well. At the end of the day, there has been so much happening around Hedera. Now that we're starting to see Hedera really kind of making a lot of noise, it's also being included in a lot of these discussions around, top 5 altcoins. And it's by prominent names like, of course, CoinGecko, which we love to see. I mean, this is great to see. It's great exposure. And we're seeing the spotlight put on HBAR. Now, obviously, it's not just HBAR, right? It's 5 top picks, but the fact that HBAR is in the same category as XRP, Avalanche, Algorand, and even Chainlink should tell you how big Hedera has now become. But on top of that, right, we are going to continue to see more and more noise being made around Hedera. Why? Well, because we continue to see moves being made almost every single day. I mean, just in the month of June so far, right, we got Arrow Global, for an example, a new GC that's focused on building out, global supply chains on chain. They want to bring them on chain. They want to tokenize. They want to bring institutional players on chain. The overall discussions happening around Hedera. I mean, every single day, we're starting to see more and more marketing pushes happening from Hedera. On top of that, we're getting a spotlight put on Hedera through a lot of these ecosystem meetups. Like, for an example, here we have a public session where we have ecosystem players being tapped in and discussions ongoing around AI, and also even, DLT and the adoption of DLT, tokenization being talked about. There's been so much announced already in the month of June, and we're only 8 days in. We're still in June, by the way. I'm scrolling through Hedera's, X account, and just think about how much activity we just went through, and we're only 8 days in. This is why I keep saying that Hedera is making so much noise, it's almost impossible not to hear it, which is why I do think that once we start to see altcoins bounce back again, HBAR is going to be one of the biggest ones. And it's also going to explode to, significant highs. I think that almost everyone is going to start to pay attention to Hedera and what Hedera is building. Even when you go over to their website, right off the rip, you see their GC. As a retail investor, the second that I see names that I'm aware of, like in real world activity, so for example, Dell, okay, great, common name. Google, common name. IBM, common name. LG. Guys, these are not names that you have to be in crypto to know. People are going to wake up to Hedera and how significant the ecosystem is, how significant the tech is, and also what they are building. What they are building is very special. It's not just, another network in the space. It's not just, oh, hey, look here's a DLT that might be very successful. Hedera is making sure that they are successful by not only building strong relationships with some very prominent enterprise players, but they're also releasing key, puzzle pieces for the network. For an example, we go and look at the AI studio. We look at the asset tokenization studio. We look at the stablecoin studio. We look at Hedera Guardian. These are all key puzzle pieces that are opening up the network to massive names. We talked about this with even Deloitte, right? Deloitte is actually utilizing the Hedera Guardian. They are a huge name. All of these solutions that Hedera has been releasing, if you blink, you might miss how big they actually are, but the ecosystem is absolutely stacked. I know that I sound like a broken record by saying like 2021 versus today is like night and day, but the reason why I say that is because back in 2020 into 2021, HBAR did a 50x return. Today, Hedera is 10 to 20 times bigger. There's so much more happening around Hedera. And we're currently trading at around roughly 16, 17 cents. I think that we could have a 10 to 20x moment on the price action. I also think that HBAR could easily, push into the top 5. This is seriously one of the most bullish crypto projects in the space. I talk about Hedera quite a bit, and the reason why I do is because there's almost nothing like it in the space with all of the activity, all of the announcements, all of the building, all of the growth happening as well. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord on the description below. And with that being said, guys, Nick, thanks for watching. Peace out.